So hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Olutoyin, for being back for another event. I know you've spoken in the past, I believe 3 or 4 times, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's always great to have you at events. You're definitely a great source of knowledge. So yeah, today we'll be just kind of doing sort of a fireside chat type of thing, just on how controllers can ensure business resiliency. So to give you guys a little bit of information about Olutoyin, so Olutoyin is the founding partner and CEO at InVcap Corporation, which is an investment advisory firm with partners in Nigeria and Canada. InVcap is lead investor at Entrepreneurs Point, a co-work incubator in Canada. Olutoyin's experience in the investment sector spans over 23 years. She managed Intercontinental Group Fund's portfolio of over $8 billion and rose to become group treasurer in 2006. Olutoyin now supervises InVcap's investment strategy. In the nonprofit sector, Olutoyin serves as an advisor with the African Expert Network, a Washington, D.C. group of investment experts drawn from the global financial sector to advise investors on Africa. In 2019, Olutoyin was inducted into the Global Leaders Forum by Women of Influence Canada. She serves on many boards in Africa and North America as well. Olutoyin has founded many nonprofit initiatives and social enterprises, including CAST Foundation, Afro Investors, Friends of Africa, and EP Academy, which are all in Canada. So Olutoyin, I just wanted to get started kind of right away with the first question I sort of have for you, which is, can you give us a few stats on the current state?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I usually like to start with the statistics.
Great.
And the way it works is, all businesses want to flourish, as you know, regardless of the season. And this goes for forward planning and identifying risks and all that. But as you all know, this has really caught us unawares, the pandemic, the COVID-19. And so we see that a lot of damages, appear to have been done so far. From the current statistics that we have from, the Government of Canada website, we see that small businesses, between October and February, the figure is showing that a lot of the businesses have been badly affected, a lot of disparities in the socioeconomic development and political scenarios. And the impact might actually, the way it's looking is that a lot of bankruptcies have been declared. Small businesses are reporting the revenue decrease of about 40% as we speak. And close to 1/4 of businesses with 1 to 4 employees, small businesses, constituting about 23.7% of, the total businesses, are actually reporting revenues of about 45%, revenue decrease of about 45% as we speak. And we're told also that about 16.8% of businesses with 20 to 99 employees are now actually reporting about 55% revenue decrease. And generally speaking, also, I actually took note of the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. They actually manage a total of about 110 businesses, on their own platform, and we're told that about 37% drop in sales, normal sales, is what most businesses are recording right now, and that most of them are at a risk of insolvency. They're facing insolvency, bankruptcy largely. So this is actually the current situation, the current scenario as we speak for small businesses in Canada. And that's why I believe it's a very good topic to actually talk about what it means to have, for the businesses to be prepared for resiliency and for continuity and so on at this point.
Definitely. And it's kind of, I know it was pretty much blindsided with, COVID and everything. So a lot of that, no one really expected it.
Absolutely.
But I think definitely going forward, it's something that maybe a lot of people will start to take into account and kind of, even if, maybe they don't think it'll happen, we have that experience now. Well, okay, maybe we should prepare for it anyways, right?
Absolutely.
So let me ask you then, can you share more on why there is a need for business resiliency?
Yeah, absolutely. From the statistics that I just the statistics that I just read out actually makes a good case for resilience in businesses, for businesses to actually prepare for this, for continuity. A lot of people, as we know, a lot of businesses and organizations usually have what they call their contingency planning for situations where you have risks. To manage risks and so on. However, from what we have seen so far, the issue there is a lot of businesses were totally unprepared for a COVID-19 kind of
Situation,
crisis. Yeah, so a crisis of this magnitude, So that's actually why it is important. It becomes really imperative then for businesses and for organizations to begin to focus on business planning, for their businesses to remain or to be resilient and to continue operations in seasons like this. Talking about resiliency, generally speaking, it's definitely preparing the business to manage disruptions. And disruptions could come in any form. Disruptions could be maybe your key staff leaving, the competitor, like almost shutting you down because of an undercut in pricing and things like that, So you want to be above always, have that competitive edge in your own market and make sure that you retain your market share and so on. But resiliency then, preparing the business for resiliency has a lot of, a few pillars, a few principles that you must generally follow as an organization. What kind of behavior, what kind of expectation in line with the shared vision? Is there that goal alignment? Is the vision shared by other people within the organization? Do the people working in various organizations, do they actually, and I cite myself as an example of a small business, do they have an understanding of the goals of the organization, the priorities of the organization, and why the business needs to remain in business, just in case there are cycles of depression and crisis as we have it. So right now, does the organization have an ability to absorb, to adapt, and to respond to the kind of changes we're seeing, particularly in a period like this? And so these are some of the things measures that key leaders within the organization must keep testing to ensure that the organization is prepared for continuity. And these are some of the things that solidify the organization to make the organization become resilient, as time goes by. Good governance will be one of those things, diversity of skills at leadership and so on level, so that that there's always a backup in place. There's always a backup plan, either in data, either a backup site where you can actually go to continue operations just in case the unexpected, the unanticipated happens. And we've seen a lot of this. I mean, obviously, 9/11 was a situation that everybody had about, where they happened, the September 11th situation of the Twin Towers. How did organizations within that building cope? However, that's not enough. So contingency planning and so on can actually manage situations like that for organizations, when situations like that arise. But when we speak about resiliency, a pandemic of this, of this magnitude, what we've seen so far, now going on its second year, because I think the first year, we've been in it for one full year now. And, the expectations of the projections is that we're still here, June, July, that's when people can now begin to plan, to return to full office operations, maybe towards the fall. How can an organization continue its business 18 months, 18 months after a fundamental event has occurred? And that's what planning entails. The planning there will entail business plans, business continuity plans put in place, programs put in place, data backup, who takes on the role of leadership, and who do they report to? If you go virtual, as we have all done, how do the organization integrate department from department, sector to sector? How do you continue to sign up deals virtually? How do you continue to book new clients virtually? And we're talking about small businesses that need to do business and that need to continue their operations. Let's take a quick look at some of the restaurants as you see them today. These are small businesses, other retailers. A lot of them have not been able to continue operations because of what has happened. However, there are a few that particularly, I don't know, maybe they actually had to graduate their contingency planning. So we do know of restaurants, yes, we know of a few that have actually continued to deliver, home delivery, they deliver food at home. However, there are few ones that are now cooking from the home of their clients. So they have all this, this long list of clients, and they actually, because we started asking questions, how did you manage to do this maybe 3-4 months after all of this? And they said, look, because they have a customer list, a list of regular customers, and they're able to now begin to book appointments with those customers because they already had a contingency plan in place, a robust one. And they could actually flesh that out to say, look, in the event that this happens, although we never foresee such, that we'll be out, we'll be out of business for 5 to 6 to 7 months. And so they kick-started that particular contingency planning to say, although we're not able to open our restaurants, although we're not able to continue operations, if this happens, then we move into the homes of our top customers. We start with the top 20% top customers, and we begin to offer them home services. Instead of delivering to the home, we turn their kitchen into the restaurant, and we deliver to them the taste that they've become used to. These are parts of, this is part of the culture of that particular organization. And the reason is they do not want to lose their top 20 customers, the top 20% rather, and they would rather have those customers, enjoying the service, so that even at the end of a situation, whether it's a crisis situation or a major disruption like we have seen through the COVID-19, they will be able to attract those customers right back into their shops, so something like that. And this is what, to my mind, a very robust contingency planning means. And this is actually what engenders continuity also in business in a situation of a disruption like this.
Mm-hmm. So just speaking a little bit more about continuity, so how do you think a business should plan to achieve continuity?
Well, I believe that a business to plan for continuity, I think the disaster recovery plan will be one of those one of the measures, one of the plans to continue, because remember, something major has happened, and so how are you going to recover from that is the first step. And then from there on, there's a checklist, which is part of that business continuity plan that I mentioned earlier. That checklist is what an organization then would need to go back to say, okay, have we done this? We crossed our I's, have we dotted our T's? Do we have the right key staff? Where are they operating from? Where do we have a backup plan? What platforms are people to use? Because right now, most people, I'm sure, maybe about 70% to 80% will be working virtually. And so what are the reporting lines? What is the structure in place? What is the platform to choose? Which one works effectively? How can you integrate staff? How can you make sure that communication continues with your staff, with your employees across nations or locally? These are some of the plans that must be in place. And usually a program, it's usually captured by a program called the Business Continuity Plan, or a program where all of the details of how the organization will move forward will be documented. And so these are some of the ways to manage continuity and to ensure business continuity for an organization in a crisis of this situation. The checklist then helps the organization also, and a manager that is in charge would have been designated so, and they begin to make notes of all of this every step of the way, reviewing it, measuring progress, reviewing it, and ensuring that they are in alignment with the plan that has been fully detailed and provided by the organization. It's usually all of these details will come from either the controller's office or the internal auditor, or including the CFO, but they need to have been properly tested through perhaps a pilot scheme, tested through a pilot scheme before the D-Day. Because when the D-Day comes, is not when you begin to now initiate all of those things. But when all of these things have been properly documented, then it's easier for people to take hold of that business plan or the business continuity plan or the program itself, and then to, push it. It's activated, as it were, activated, and then people begin to run. The key people also know what roles they play. Who is facing the customer? Who is communicating with the customer? When is the CEO supposed or expected to communicate with the employees or the staff or the key staff? And at what rate? Will it be a weekly? Will it be monthly? Will it be daily? Because it's a crisis situation. All of these things come into play for any business at all. But today we're focusing on small businesses. And so even at the small business level, it becomes critical to success. It becomes imperative for people to hear from the key leaders of any organization, whether it's a CEO, whether it's executives in the C-suite. They need to continually hear from them, because that engenders confidence on one hand, and then because these are the guys playing on the field, interacting with the various customers, then it becomes really critical for them to hear directly from the key leader at COO or CEO level. Because the voice of the CEO or the COO speaking to them gives them that confidence to go out to the marketplace and actually face the client and assure the client of what needs to be done and how things are being managed from the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely some great points there. So then kind of following up on that, I think you mentioned just a little bit, but so ensuring business resiliency, how can the controllers kind of, help to improve and ensure business resiliency for their organization?
You're right. Thank you for that question, Alex. The key role then is, because the controller in any organization has like a bird's eye view of what's going on within the organization, and so that organization, he knows every part of it, no cranny department, what the gaps are, what's going on, what gaps need to be plugged, and who is doing what. And so the role of the controller then is it's really strategic, because he can dig deeper into different units of the organization. He must ensure that the policies and particularly this business continuity plan become effective. Remember that the controller himself must have been part of the team, most likely in any well-structured organization, that actually put together the business continuity plan anyway. So he probably perhaps has a fair idea of how that will unfold once it is activated, who is in charge of what, and so on. And so then the controller becomes that person that begins to monitor and measure the effectiveness of the business continuity plan. There's the strategic part of it where emergency management of the business continuity becomes a major focus for the controller. How does this work? The controller must be seen to support the business recovery process, and at the same time manage the execution, ensuring that the standards and the business plan program is being kept to, it's becoming effective in the way it is being implemented by the various other units. And the major way this can be done is actually by checks and balances put in place, monitoring and measuring progress every step of the way. Of course, reports will definitely be sent. Each unit sends reports. Usually the way we understand it in small businesses that we manage is that weekly, monthly, there are expected reports that will be sent to the office of the person in control, the internal audit, or similar offices created by small businesses. Based on those reports, there are a few things that the controller is looking for: adherence to policies, through the implementation process. And once there are breaches, the controller also understands immediately how to step in, which officers need to step in, where there are gaps, and so on. However, we believe also that the controller should not only be checking gaps, they are also looking ahead, because remember, it is a crisis situation. And so the controller should also have that oversight responsibility, because it's not a normal period. And so definitely some of the roles that are not ordinarily the controllers will perhaps be added to the controller, so that at the end of the day, gaps can be plugged easily, and the controller would have that reporting role to his own executives, giving the feedback of how well they are doing in terms of managing controls and making sure that the organization is susceptible to major risks. There will always be risks. However, plugging those risks or finding those mitigants, mitigation steps that will plug, that will address some risks, will be the role of the controller. Of course, in such situations, the controller then will need subject matter experts that will need to take charge in various units of monitoring, of measuring, of reporting, and of watching, so that they become the eye of the organization. However, that role is one role, but they may have several subject matter experts, across board in various units, managing various units, monitoring and measuring, understanding what happens. I mean, take for instance, in a bank, we can quickly cite that, because we all bank, we all have a bank, one bank or the other. you can imagine a controller's role in a banking institution. My understanding, based on the little I've seen so far, is that a controller working in a bank, I mean, I'm not sure how that works really around here, but based on our small business experience, will then be the one checking every detail of what's going in and out of accounts and so on. It's a crisis, right? And so a lot of institutions, particularly those ones that deal with money matters, might be susceptible to fraud and all kinds of things that could actually set them back. Fraudulent practices, activities, and so on, because it's not a normal period, and a lot of people may require additional things. So this is the time to watch out for fraud in various practices and so on. Now the controller sits in one place because that's one person. But subject matter experts and so many other people that have been appointed by the controller's office, who possibly might have been in all those locations before, but because they didn't have a major crisis on hand, were not particularly, maybe the way the role is defined was a little different. But in a crisis, those subject matter experts will be activated to perform additional roles of checking who is going, who is coming, what's coming into account, what's going out of account, and things like that. They will report every little detail. I reckon they will need to report every little detail to ensure that the organization is protected from fraudulent practices and any form of malpractices, and that the long-term business continuity of the organization is ensured. This will be the role of a controller, and subject matter experts definitely need to be added to the team. Now, when I talk about subject matter experts, they perhaps would be people who are not by definition controllers, working with the controller, but they will actually be business-minded experts also joined to the team because they understand how the business line works. And so they are not coming as auditors or inspectors or the general. They're coming as people who have a general idea of what's going on in other units, other departments, and can actually quickly think ahead of people that are actually controllers. So they would need to actually embrace and work with subject matter experts so that they can actually curtail anomalies and so on when there's a crisis and disruption to business like this. I think those are the ones that I can talk about right now.
Well, that's definitely a lot of information there. So it kind of seems like, controllers, especially now, like they're kind of taking on a much bigger role than normally, right? Yeah. So let me ask you this then: can a controller become a part of business development especially during times like this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I believe so, actually, because as a founder of some businesses myself, I do know that it's for the health of the organization. Definitely, the controller has his own defined roles, and I mean his or her the defined roles. However, for a controller to really be part of the solution, to be part of the solution in a situation like we have on our hands right now, where everything is, seemingly down, you're trying to rebuild the business and recover all that you have lost, but the controller needs to keep the books, monitoring and measuring and, watching and all of that. But I believe the controller can also actually be a part of business development. And why do I say so? Business development, business development is the role of the business development managers. Definitely, it's the role of the CEO, C-suite executives. They're getting businesses. It could be recommended anywhere. The controller is a watchdog. Yes, it's the policeman. Yes, it's the gatekeeper. We have different names in our organizations actually for the controller. But the truth of the matter is, the controller at the point like this will need to be more solution focused. Yes, they're usually problem focused, nipping issues, covering gaps, recommending and highlighting gaps in the system, making sure that people don't actually take advantage of the system because of those gaps and things like that. But by becoming more solution focused, then they become part of the organization in generating ideas. They can come around the table to begin to create, contribute to idea development. As the ideas are being contributed, we're at that level of idea generation, idea creation, the controller can actually be around the table also to actually make suggestions as to why some of those ideas may not work and what possible options the organization might have. You know, when you're looking to solve a problem, sometimes it's much easier to be around the table where ideas are being generated, because that way then you have like an overview, like you're part of the decision making, which he already is, but then you are contributing in a more positive way, in that whilst other people might have seen the controller as a clog, some organizations believe that, oh, sometimes they delay a lot of transactions, they're always looking for holes and loopholes and things like that. By the time the controller actually positions his team to be part of the solution and to begin to contribute ideas, I think a lot of problems will be house solved, because then they already know what idea is being mooted, how the idea would evolve, and so on. And then on their team, they can actually begin to prepare some of the mitigants in case of risks and so on. So it's part of the risk management role that the controller would actually play by thinking ahead of the organization, because he's already sitting at the table where ideas are being generated. I think this should be a part of the role of a controller in this particular season, when businesses are at the, going towards recovery, for them to be able to continue. They become partners in progress, and then the organization is seen as more resilient. So for instance, I give you a quick example of, trying to do a transaction with a bank, a transaction that ordinarily I would need to go into the banking hall to do. In fact, I never thought I could do it outside of the banking hall before now. But virtually, I'm able to do it and complete everything now, from insurance, to doing an investment deal. You will need to book an appointment before. I'm not sure if you know how that works. They will ask you to go see an investment advisor and so on. But these days, nobody's going into the banking hall. Everything is being completed virtually, and all you're required to do is perhaps send a piece of ID, which will probably be your driver's license. Now, how does a controller cope in situations like that? This was not the idea before now. My years of maybe 10, 15 years running with such banks, we've never had to do it so. But now you're signing your mortgage, you're doing all of this virtually. Yeah. How does the controller manage this? Because these are some of the loopholes in the system. How does he ensure that the piece of ID that is being submitted is the correct one? How can he match this to the face that he's seeing? How can they ensure that the right mortgages are being given to the right people? What kind of checks and balances are in place? The controller will be best suited to be at the round table where all of these decisions are being taken, how to change some of the scenarios so that business can continue in the banks. And so when he sits at those tables, he will be able to quickly alert the organization or his team members about the loopholes in such scenarios. And of course, business has to continue and all those deals are being done. Then they will know what to check out for, so that they know how to go back and keep the organization protected.
Great. Yeah, that's great, some information. So I just have one final question for you here. I know we only have just a couple of minutes left, so maybe try and give sort of maybe the most critical kind of fast info for this.
Okay.
So apart from government statistics that have been reported, what issues are businesses facing now, and what are the real issues?
What are the real issues? Well, I see that. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the statistics earlier. What are the main issues, really? The main issues to my mind, I'm a small business, so the main issues are funding, capital funding. How will all the obligations be met? So organizations generally, small organizations particularly, you have your employees, you have obligations to meet to employees, to logistic providers, and so on. The fact remains that most organizations haven't really opened shop. I'm sure maybe 65% or 65 to 70% haven't actually been in the four walls of their offices over time, meaning that they've not been able to attract into their offices the kind of clients that they were banking before now. Yet they need to pay the obligations because the obligations are not on hold, you know. The leases are not on hold. The rentals are not on hold. Most of the staff are still working, although working virtually. But the fact remains that they're not as effective as if they were working within the four walls of the organization. A lot of clients are not coming into the offices. So the small businesses, whether they're small business or even medium-sized, they need the capital. They need support. And I do know that the federal government has released a lot. But is it adequate? The fact is, it is not, because there are just some people that cannot actually cope outside virtually, no matter the contingency plan you put in place. Not every restaurant can go into somebody's home and offer them home cooked meals, you know, like I described earlier.
Yeah.
You know, not every barber, you know, whether it's a hair salon, you know, I'm talking about small businesses now, and even the medium-sized ones. Not all of them can actually do all of these things. So the capital remains critical for the long-term sustainability, even medium-term sustainability of these small businesses and organizations. Also talking about recovery, support, human resource support. And so we believe that, I mean, there are a lot of committees working with the federal government right now on what needs to be done, but I do hope that they get to hear some of these reports, and then they will take some necessary actions to help businesses recover and from all the losses that have been amassed over time. This is really a critical part: the capital, the human resource, and some material resource too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we, Toronto Jobs ourselves, we're a small business as well, and definitely, a lot of those things are something that we have to deal with as well. So yeah, definitely a lot of issues like that. I don't think a lot of people are really aware of.
Right.
So I know we're just out of time here. So I just wanted to ask quickly, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you if they want to follow up or have any questions or things like that?
Right. Actually, they can actually connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's the fastest way. And so I'm Olutoyin Oyelade on LinkedIn and on all social media, but I'm more active on LinkedIn actually. So they can connect with us. And then entrepreneurspoint.com is downtown Toronto. That's the latest venture that we just started. And it's a shared working space. I believe a lot of people can actually come in and experience the shared working space that we just started at entrepreneurspoint.com. It's a good way of meeting with us. It's downtown Toronto, number 117 Richmond Street West, downtown Toronto.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, that definitely sounds really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again for speaking. It was a really great conversation. Definitely some great information there. I hope everyone watching, really enjoyed this presentation. Just to let everyone know as well, so there is a recording of this session available. So, Olo, if you would like a copy, certainly let me know. Or if anyone else watching would like a copy, just let us know as well. But thanks again, Olutoyin, for speaking. It's always great to have you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Nice having you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.